What's happening here?
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening. My name is Councillor Linda Kirby. Welcome to the Planning Applications Committee. Can I have apology? We have no apologies for absence. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any?
No.
No. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can we agree those, please?
Agreed.
Thank you. We have two items on the agenda tonight. Our first item is agenda item 5, 91 Dorian Road. Is that Jonathan presenting or Tim?
Sorry, Councillor Kirby. Tim's presenting Dorian Road.
Right, thank you. Sorry about that.
Unmute Tim.
If you're not unmuted, he can't hear you.
Chair, so members, the application site outlined in red here is at the southern end of Dorian Road in Rains Park. Currently comprises a 2-bedroom end terrace property. It used to have garages adjoined to it, but they have been subsequently demolished in consent of one of the permissions within your agenda in the planning history section. So as I said, 2-bed end terrace property. Running through the existing floor plans at the moment. So typical terrace house from within that area. The proposal itself is to extend at ground floor level, a single-story rear extension, and also at roof level, a mansard roof extension to form 2 one-bedroom flats. So the ground floor flat accessed here. Bedroom at the front, living space at the back. Going to first floor, the first floor level flat would be split level. First floor level for living space, and then at top floor level, the bedroom space within the roof. Turning to the elevations, as I said, a mansard roof extension design. There are various roof extensions within this area. Ranging from box dormers to mansard roofs as well. 2 roof lights at the front, and the ground floor extension would take the form of a flat roof brick extension. It's a section drawing of the proposal. So the proposal here, the garden space would only serve the ground floor unit, and it would subdivide the plot with the neighbouring site, which is being implemented for 3 flats next door. Site pictures, as I said, they've implemented the adjoining permission. This is the site itself here and here. The front porch would remain, and then the 2 internal doors, there'll be 2 internal doors, 1 for each flat. At the rear, so the roof extension here and then the ground floor extension here. As I said in the report, there is consent they're implementing here, which is to build in identical appearance to the properties for 3 flats being consented here. And this is just a look further down at the back of the properties. As I said, there's a variety of roof extensions which generally happen over time in this area as they come in. Chair, overall, officers are happy with the conversion in principle and recommend permission be granted, subject to a legal agreement restricting parking permits, which would be for 1 flat, and conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just, there we go. Apologies.
Okay, thanks very much. Questions, please. Councillor Dean.
When we spoke about a property in this area about 4 or 5 months ago, and for the last 12 years, these very small family houses have been protected because we need to ensure that we keep a broad range of properties around the borough. And since 2006, these have been. And I was told that the last time one went through, it's because it had been modified. But I don't understand, because I've now been told by officers that these will be protected, continue to be protected, why this is here, because you've got 1,200 properties here, and once one goes, they're all going to go. So I can't see why these keep coming up.
Thank you. Apologies. Chair, this did come up at a similar property nearby at 36 Aston Road. So at that time, that was the end of last year, the scheme was presented to the committee. First time it was deferred for officers to look into that legal advice. We did track down the legal advice, and the legal advice was received in 2006, but the advice was based on what weight could be attached to the council's 2001 SPG on residential extensions, alterations and conversions. So the SPG outlined that conversion schemes for small houses or buildings with less than 120 square meters of floor space will not normally be permitted. The conclusion of that legal advice that we've seen from 2006 was that the SPG was material consideration, but with little weight to be attached to it. Now that was based in 2006, and so the current situation is, with the current development plan, is a 2001 SPG is no longer adopted and in existence for the council. So therefore, no weight can be attached to it. So that was the advice back then for the 36 Aston Road scheme, and that is the same advice I'm giving this evening for this current scheme. I appreciate it is an identical scheme. These houses are identical, but that is the advice that I'm giving this evening.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? No questions. Any Councillor Making?
The application was granted in early on last year or later last year for the flat for the garages to be demolished. Was that to do with did we see that come here in the first place? And what happened to the garden space for the people not living on the floor in the block that's been replaced by the garage? I'm a bit concerned that this one has got no outdoor space for the people on the top floor.
Chair, the application at the adjacent garages didn't come to committee, given it was based on the very limited objections to it. In terms of the outdoor space for that scheme, so that scheme extended the building sideways, but left a metre access gap round to the rear. So the ground floor flat in that scheme next door did have its own private space, and further, the first floor and top floor flat did have a shared communal garden space at the very back of the garden as part of that scheme. Which this scheme, you'll see with in the rear garden, the angle of the division accounts for that matching one next door.
And can you verify again why there's no outdoor space for the properties?
With this scheme, the difficulty is there's no side access for this, given the scheme next door adjoins to it. It is difficult with conversions, as putting balconies on the rear first floor level in houses like this can cause overlooking issues to the neighbouring properties. So it is a bit like the 36 Aston Road scheme. It is a shortfall in the application, but it's not one that we think could be justifiably refused on.
Any other questions, please? Councillor Latif.
Thank you, Chair. Page 7, paragraph 7.31 says that the flats will be permit free apart from flat number 1, which has an existing parking permit. How many parking permits is flat 1 allowed to have in total?
Chair, I don't know the exact answer to that. I wonder if the transport planner, Sarath, could be brought in on this, if that's possible, please.
Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, they're eligible for 1 permit, 1 dwelling house.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to come back to this issue of the lack of outdoor space. And indeed, it's the lack of outdoor space, which is one of the reasons why I'm so concerned about converting houses into flats, these small houses. So I just want to be clear. We have a policy, and the GLA has a policy, that there should be outdoor space, but there isn't in one of these flats. And we've just, and your recommendation is that despite it not meeting that policy, we should still approve it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Comments, please. Any comments? Councillor Dean.
Well, going back to what Tara Butler wrote to me in January, she said that small family homes have always been protected. And it's not just about what was in the planning documents. It's the reason behind it, because we know that the majority of things that come to us are 1 and 2 bedroom flats. And these particular properties in the Apostles area between Rains Park and Wimbledon, there's about 1,200 of them. And they are the smallest houses you can get. They're the lowest priced houses you can get in the area. And they are that step up from a 1 bedroom flat to a 2 bedroom house with a garden. Otherwise, the next houses up are £1 million. And I don't know anybody that can afford those kind of things. And the reason they were protected is to make sure that local people could carry on living in the area and people can move up once they've lived in the area. By taking them out, that means the only people that can afford to live here are those that buy a flat and stay there, or are very wealthy people. And I'm not convinced that we should be doing that on the basis they have been protected. And also Tara's words were, Merton's local plan contains a policy to require a conversion of a 3-bed dwelling to re-provide a 3-bed dwelling as part of the conversion. But that hasn't happened for 2-bed houses. And I think that's because and these are my words, it fell through the cracks. However, we are discussing the future approach to smaller homes, e.g. 2-bed houses, with residents in Merton. That says to me that the general approach from the council is that we should protect smaller houses less than 120 square meters, and 3-bedroom houses are protected. And it's just that 2 bedrooms fell through the cracks. So this is a plea really to say, let's stop this one, because the other 1,200 will all go, because there is an opportunity to make money on these. And I think that we should be here to protect these kind of houses.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Southgate.
On mute, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with much of what Councillor Dean says, and I would add to that the thought of living in a small upstairs flat with no external amenity space facing the prospect of another lockdown is something that I would welcome. I mean, I think people's outlook, attitude towards these things would change dramatically. Unfortunately, I don't think we can
anticipate how we might want the policy to change in future. I don't think we have grounds to refuse, but we can certainly regret the loss of a small 2-bedroom house at within an affordable range. But I don't think it would stack up on appeal if we turned it down, I'm afraid.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask a question, please. Is it okay? Right, where is the nearest park? Because I'm not familiar with the area, and if there's a park nearby, I mean, that could complement it for, you know, not having the appropriate space for, you know, social activities.
Okay.
Chair, so there's the, as outlined in the report at paragraph 7.30, there are the Prince George's playing fields south of the dual carriageway to the south of the site, and further beyond is the Cannon Hill Common. The Prince George's playing field does have public footpath networks going through it, which links up to Cannon Hill Common. As the crow flies, for example, I measured that earlier today. So that will be circa 350 meters from the site to the Prince George's playing fields. So they are the nearest sort of public outdoor space, you could say, to the site.
Yeah, Councillor Dean.
That's not true. Prince George's playing fields is a private site. The entrance is in Grand Drive. So if you wish to go along the public right of way, it's about 1.5 miles. So that's not correct at all.
Okay. I'd just like to comment. I mean, I've got a lot of sympathy for lots of small family dwellings, because Grave New Ward has really suffered from that. And we've campaigned against every single conversion and not got anywhere with that. And trying to get an Article 4 direction to prevent further conversions. And at the same time, we've now got the government saying build, 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 and relaxing the planning laws, you know, and you're almost beginning to wonder whether we're going to have a role to play, really, for if planning rules are relaxed so much. I can't see where we're going to fit in with this. It's, you know, total sympathy for wanting to protect these houses. I would always want to campaign against it. But you will need a recommendation. If you want to put forward a recommendation, Councillor Dean, please do.
And I know you'd prefer me to be brief, but I think you're absolutely right about build, 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 but it's about building new properties in places which are fair for the people who are going to live in them. And this site actually has already, they've taken the garden and put 3 dwellings. So it's a really good site for Merton. So it's gone from 1 house to 3 flats and 1 house. And I think that's done the job. And to go to 5 on a tiny plot is unreasonable. And I think we should say no. Councillor Southgate, we win the vast majority of the appeals. Not just us as councillors, but also officers, the vast majority. We've never been put in special measures. I say that Councillor McGrath has talked about outdoor space. The officers are wrong in terms of Prince George's playing fields. If we don't protect this one, the other 1,200 will go, and very quickly. And it's about the passion for the area. And I'm sorry to say that. We've got to think about the people who live here. This is not about being a NIMBY. This is not about protecting rich people. This is not about throwing people out of their houses. This is about offering what we keep talking about. Merton's a great place to live. Please, let's reject this on lack of outdoor space, and also reject it on the loss of a family home based on the fact it's got 3 flats on the same site. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Latif. Okay, thank you. Right, we're going to put that to the vote, and in order to do this, we're going to have a show of hands first, and then we will have a roll call. Okay, so those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Those against, please show. Those not voting, please show. Okay, now Louise is going to roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I'm going to read your names in alphabetical order. If you could indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Christie.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Henry.
Can't hear you, Councillor Henry. You have to switch your... I think we should all be unmuted for this, please.
Against.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirby.
I'm not voting.
Councillor Lanning.
Against.
Councillor Latif.
For.
Councillor Makin.
Against.
Councillor McGrath.
For.
Councillor Southgate.
Can't hear you, Councillor Southgate.
Not voting.
Not voting.
And Councillor Ward.
Against.
Okay, so that's 3 votes for, 5 against and 2 not voting.
Okay, and now we move to the recommendation in the report. Can I see those in favour? Please show. And those against? And not voting. And the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Christie.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Henry.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Kirby.
Not voting.
Councillor Lanning.
For.
Councillor Latif.
Against.
Councillor Makin.
For.
Councillor McGrath.
Against.
Councillor Southgate.
Not voting.
And Councillor Ward.
For.
That's 5 votes for, 3 against and 2 not voting.
And the recommendation is then carried. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is 34 Langdale Avenue. That's Jonathan.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chair, members, this application concerns the extension and conversion of a 2-storey end of terrace house on Langdale Avenue into 5 flats. It's brought before Planning Committee for determination at the request of Councillor Akikina and Councillor Stanford. If I can just show you the site, just one moment. Can I just confirm you can see the images on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I can just take you down to the photographs at the end of the presentation. Langdale Avenue is a pleasant suburban road lying just south of Mitcham town centre and is characterised by short terraces and pairs of semi-detached 2-storey houses. I've said here you may see from the photos that the house lies on a gentle bend in the road and has a gable-ended roof along with a double garage to the south. You may also notice houses nearby, such as the 2 houses to the north. I just take you to the other photos. 2 houses to the north. So this is at the back of the site. So this is the application property and the gap where the additional building is going to, what was proposed to go. You'll see there are a number of houses nearby that have got roof extensions, and you'll see a roof extension there on the other side of the terrace. And if I can just take you to, that's Unfortunately, the image I've got does show the flank wall of the house to the south, but I've got a number of images of councillors on one side of the screen, and I just want to confirm that people can see the flank wall of the other property.
Yeah.
Yep.
No?
Yes.
Okay. So the proposals show two recent decisions for extensions to the subject property, which help inform the context of the current applications. If I can just call up those images. You'll see, if you look at the planning history part of the report, that there are two recent decisions from December last year. One was a submission for what's known as prior approval. That's the light touch approach the government introduced a few years ago for larger extensions. This single story rear extension, it was deemed that prior approval wasn't required. The application had been the subject of consultation. No representations were received from the neighbouring properties, and as such, because it meets the specified criteria, the applicant was able to go ahead, or was deemed able to build the extension. The other application that's I think relevant in this instance is the certificate of lawfulness, also granted in December last year, and you can see here that under permitted development rights, the council has issued a lawful development certificate for a roof extension for the house, were it to remain as an existing dwelling. I take you back now to the proposals. Members will see from the report that the application has been the subject of a number of objections, including overdevelopment, parking, quality of accommodation, noise, both as a result of construction and from intensity of occupation, impact on neighbour amenity from loss of light and overlooking. If I can take you to the drawings. The extension to the side has been designed in the form of an extension to the existing terrace. So it's been designed in a way to endeavour to blend in with the existing terrace. The plans that I can show you, sorry, here are for the floors, sorry, of the building. We've got on the ground floor, we've got a 2-bedroomed, 3-person house where the cursor is circling. On the ground floor, which is proposed to be extended, a 3-bedroomed, 4-person unit. And you'll see here that this is roughly the line of the prior approval addition that I showed you on the earlier image. At first floor level, the proposals are for a 1-person studio flat and another flat. And then at roof level, a more generous flat. And if I can show you the elevations to the rear of the property. Again, if you recall the image that I showed you of the certificate of lawfulness, although these proposals are slightly different with a small rear addition, you'll see this corresponds to a great extent to the certificate of lawfulness, which was considered. And what's proposed is not only something which is designed to blend in with the existing terrace, but would also have a dormer to the rear. The The body of the officer's report considers both the principle of the development and its various detailed aspects, from design to impact on neighbour amenity, parking, servicing and sustainability. And if I can take you to the conclusions of the report, proposals would provide a mix of dwellings and diversify the available housing stock consistent with the general thrust of housing policy in an area characterised by family housing. And you'll see the report evidences the basis on which that assertion is made in terms of the housing mix in Mitcham. The proposal would retain a family-sized flat in accordance with council policy. All units would meet both internal and external space standards. The scale and form and design of the extension is considered acceptable, and officers consider would blend in satisfactorily in the street scene. Via the use of a Section 106 undertaking, the proposal would not increase parking pressure on the highway, as there's a mechanism by which we can restrict new flat dwellers from being eligible for permits. Potential occupancy is not considered likely to be a source of noise and disturbance, and you'll see some commentary in the report regarding potential occupancy levels. Short-term impact from noise can be managed by condition, and an appropriate condition has been attached, and that's notwithstanding the government's drive to allow for longer hours of work on building sites. This matter has been the subject of discussion between the section manager and team leaders, and it's considered appropriate that we look at things on a case-by-case basis. Adequate arrangements are made for the location and waste of storage, and it's considered the proposals comply with the principles of national planning policy, policies referred to under section 6, nationally adopted space standards, local and metropolitan external space standards, and local refuse requirements. And permission is recommended for approval subject to a section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, can I just ask you a question? On page 27, the number of bedrooms by tenure and range of mix. It's the census 2011, that's 9 years ago.
Chair, that's the most recent comprehensive nationwide assessment of all housing and all family types and population for the UK. Okay. So in terms of a comprehensive base, that is the most accurate and up-to-date evidence that we can draw on.
Right, but it is 9 years old. When I look at my area, I would say that's history. But anyway, questions, please. Councillor Makin.
Could you show me where the cycle storage is going to be on the plans, please?
The cycle stores are you can see where the cursor is circling here. We've got the annotation reads cycle parking for 8 cycles in a covered rack.
Right. And that's at the back.
That's at the back of the site. So somewhere that ideally, if you look at the side of the property, again, if you can see where the cursor is circling on the screen, you'll see it's marked security gate. So in order to get access to the cycle store, you'd need to get through the security gate. So in this instance, it's considered preferable to having all the cycle stores at the front of the site. And you can see it as well on this larger scale drawing that we've got the potential for refuse storage to the front of the site.
My concern was that it didn't seem obvious how they were going to get the bikes to the back of the property. but it appears there's an entrance.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions, please? No other questions. Comment?
And Rebecca's good question.
Councillor Ward.
Chair, Councillor Lanning had a question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Would we be able to go to the image of the front of the property?
Yeah. A photograph of the front of the property?
You had a photo, I think, as you were sharing the plans.
Yeah.
Somebody has a radio on.
I think that's actually just speaking in the background. Apologies.
That's looking, sorry, that's looking north, and that's, again, the images of the members seem to cover up part of the photograph that I'm sharing.
That's fine. I think my question is that
there we go. Yes. Can you see? So here we go. That's looking south. So this is the existing house. That's the pair of double garages, and that's looking south along Langdale Avenue.
Great, thank you. I think my question is that on the proposed ground floor plan, it seems as though the front courtyard is quite generous, because we're looking at 10 wheeled bins and then 5 mixed recycling boxes, 5 kitchen caddies, plus new planting beds, all to fit in that front courtyard. And it's just a question as to whether that would fit in that space.
Certainly, when I visited Langdale Avenue, what I was conscious of, I mean, you can see, you know, where the little arrows pointing there. We've got 1, 2, at least 3 bins in the front of this property here. I mean, you know, I'll grant you that having the bins at the front of the property isn't perhaps as attractive a feature as we might like, but there's got to be a balance between providing adequate space for refuse storage and you know, meeting the council's requirements. What I wouldn't want to suggest in a case like this, you've got a perfectly good 1 metre wide access at the side of the site to gain access to the communal garden to the rear and the bike store. I'm not sure I'd really want to try and start putting bins at the back, because you'd then be rolling the bins alongside the flank wall of someone's flat when the bins need to be put out. So
no, I fully appreciate that. I think my question was just whether or not the plans were sort of accurately depicting the space that is available in that front courtyard, really, because there's new planting beds proposed as well as space to put all of those bins, and it was just a question on how accurate the plans were depicting that.
What I would say is that the practice that submitted the application routinely make applications to the planning service at Merton, and I found them, you know, a perfectly reliable firm to work with. I think they're, you know, their drawings do suggest to me proper survey work has been undertaken. So I'm quite comfortable with that.
Any other questions, please? Councillor Southgate.
Thank you, Chair. this, to state the blooming obvious, this development takes advantage of a huge double garage block to the one side, doesn't it? Can you just comment on or the gap that would remain between here and number 38, is it, to the side there? It seems to me that there will still be a gap between the houses, in other words, even after this. So you wouldn't get a continuous terracing effect. There would still be a gap that one could see through from the street.
Yes. I can go back to the images again. Yes, to the side of the property would be a gate, and then there's a gate next to the next house. So if we look at the keep going down. Yes, I mean, if we look at, again, if you can see where the arrow is circling, although Langdale Avenue has the feel of quite a sort of a close-knit, fairly urban street, it does have quite pleasant gaps between the blocks that make up the street. And I think this is as good a gap as we might reasonably want. I think to make the gap wider would then result in the infill development looking as if somebody had put it in a giant vice and squeezed it. I think at the moment it's got the proportions, the dimensions which make it fit into the street without crowding out its neighbours.
Thank you.
I don't know why I've got Word come up on my screen. Well, I have. Right, sorry about that. Yes, are there any more questions? Councillor Ward, you had your hand up originally. Did you want to speak still?
I was trying to draw your attention to Councillor Lanning, who wanted to ask a question.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, no more questions, then we move on to comments. Are there any comments? No. Okay, then we'll move to the vote then. Can I see those in favour of the application, please? So. Those against? Not voting. Louise will do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Christie.
4.
Councillor Dean.
Not voting.
Councillor Henry.
4.
Councillor Kirby.
4.
Councillor Lanning.
4.
Councillor Latif.
4.
Councillor Makin.
4.
Councillor McGrath. Councillor McGrath.
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Southgate.
4.
Councillor Ward.
4.
That's 9 votes for, none against, and 1 not voting.
Thank you. So the recommendation is carried. That concludes the meeting for this evening. Thank you very much for everyone taking part.
Thank you, Linda. Good night, all.
Good evening, everyone.